Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Mondays Down South. Thank you to Evan and Zach for holding down the fort last week. I was just telling them I was watching the podcast, and without having to scrutinize my performance and just getting to watch the two boys go at it, it was amazing. The only thing I missed was some very lively debates, or what would have been, given some of the disagreements I would have had with these two, because they were very much on the same page. So this week we will make sure that happens. We're going to do some recaps. But before we get into any of that, we want to take a moment to thank our viewers and our listeners, because finally, after the slow churn, after multiple years of us going at it, thank you all. We are at 100 subscribers. Let's go MDS. I wish we had something to drop confetti, but we are so happy. So thank you guys. Thank you. Evan, Zach, I love you boys. This has been one of the things I look forward to the most since COVID has started, and it continues to be, and I am so appreciative for this. So love you guys, and you guys, I'm going to let you guys speak on it before we get into any game stuff.
Dude, all I got to say is we started this even before COVID. I don't think we hit YouTube until during COVID because we had nothing else to do. And I even remember the first episode but of YouTube. But keep in mind that we even did this beforehand when we were trying out Skype. Zoom didn't even exist then, boys. And we were... we had the idea inception maybe like 2017, 2018, but it's gone longer than what the viewers even see on YouTube. And so that's special enough. The idea came from a long time ago, and this was back when we had like 3 viewers, and it was each of our parents. So, it didn't make too much traction back then, but it is really cool to see how far we've come, and not just with the 100 subscribers, boys. We've worked hard for that, but also the thousands of viewers and maybe tens of comments that we've received on our shorts too. So I think we're getting a lot of traction there, and excited to keep that moving forward into the new year.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. No, just to echo what you guys said, proud of all 3 of us for keeping at it these 3 years, and appreciate everyone that's subscribed and viewed and all the above. So it seems like a small goal just hitting 100, but there was always something I think in all of our minds that would be an exciting milestone to hit. So just the beginning, but yeah, thanks everyone for the support all along the way. So let's keep it rolling.
Yeah, and Zach actually brought up parents, so that brings up a really good point. I want to give a special shout out to Mr. Maroney. I ran into him at a work event the other day. I hope he listens to this one because he deserves a shout out. I ran into him at a work event, and he made a point of letting me know that he listened to our most recent one with the 3 of us and that it was a great episode. So that's just the kind of support that we love. So thank you, Mr. Maroney and Mrs. Maroney. And yeah, let's get rolling. I love it. All right, so we're going to jump into the recaps, peeps. And I think we'll just go in order of the games because at this point we only had 4. And there were at least a couple really good ones. The first one, not so much. We got Ravens-Texans. Ravens absolutely demolished at home. I think a lot of people expected that. Any thoughts on that game? Obviously, a shout-out to C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans for one heck of a run this year. They won a playoff game. I don't think anyone expected them to have that level of success. D'Amico Ryans, probably the coach of the year. So shout-out to them. But you guys, you tell me what you're thinking about that game.
Yeah, I don't have much on the Saturday games as much. I didn't watch those as closely. But, the Texans hung in there the first half. Defense was playing well. And then the Baltimore buzzsaw just took over both on offense and defense. I think, Stroud had trouble moving the ball, and then, the offense got rolling. Shout out Mike McDonald. He's become my new 1A Commanders head coach preference over Ben Johnson. That Baltimore defense has been unbelievable, and he's right at the face of it, giving, all kinds of trouble to opposing offenses. So we'll give him a shout out there.
Yeah, only thing I have to say, Sai, is the Baltimore Buzzsaw is a fantastic name, Evan. I'm not sure if you created it yourself or you're stealing that from an ESPN webpage, but I like that a lot. And I will say, hats off to C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans. Obviously, D'Amico Ryans deserves to win Coach of the Year. We'll see what happens there. but this defense is next level. And I'm going to wait for my analysis, guys, until we get into the conference championship games. But I have been watching Baltimore recently, and I think I know the secret to why that defense is so evolutionary and much better than every other one. I mean, even the 49ers defense, which is good. I think the Ravens defense is better, and I know why. I know the X factor, but I'll wait to share that later. Sai, what are your thoughts on the game?
Nothing major on the game because I think you guys kind of covered it. I think all it really showed is that there's levels to this, really in the context of NFL and what makes a team elite. And the Ravens obviously are one of the most well-rounded teams. The only way you beat a team like that is to just have somebody that can take over a game, and that's the only way to do it. And unfortunately, I mean, it's not unfortunate. C.J. Stroud's a rookie. I think it's going to be very difficult to beat a team like that, especially in their house in the playoffs. So they didn't do anything wrong. Extremely successful season, but that's my takeaway. Although I will give myself a little pat on the back though, because Evan mentioned coaching, and Brian Callahan, whose name I've been bringing up consistently, just got hired by the Tennessee Titans immediately. Like they didn't even wait; they already hired him. So I think he was obviously a hot name. He was in the coaching carousel last year, but for whatever reason, people didn't talk about him much this year. Maybe it's because Burrow got hurt, but he's done a great job over in Cincinnati, coaching a great offense. So. Excited for him. I'm not excited he's in my division, but I just want to bring him up because we're talking Houston, and obviously he's in the division. So, yeah, throwing that out there.
Breaking news. Hadn't seen that one, but
Yes, sir.
well, Brian Callahan, Will Levis pairing. That'll be interesting. We'll see how that
Indeed.
works.
I think it's way better than whoever comes to the Carolina Panthers and tries to coach Bryce Young, because I just think Bryce Young has proven himself not to be that candidate. I think there are head coaching jobs. I think there are head coaches that are avoiding Carolina specifically because they're worried about having to turn this kid who is under 6 feet, who miraculously survived the season. I will give it to him. He is a tough dude. But when you're getting hit, you can barely see over the line of scrimmage. You have barely any receivers to throw the ball to, and you're potentially going to lose a lot of guys on the defensive side. J.C. Horn can't stay healthy. Brian Burns is about to get a big deal somewhere else. When you look at the head coach who's going to come over and try to resolve the Bryce Young issue, I think that is such a tall order. I would rather have Will Levis than Bryce Young. And I don't think that catches people by surprise anymore. I think Will Levis has already proven that his arm strength is uncanny. He reminds me of he is a Josh Allen body type. He can absorb hits. He can deal with pain, get back up, be resilient, and he showed that this whole season. Bryce Young, he can't. He's accurate. He doesn't really have the biggest arm, and he's short. He can barely see over the line of scrimmage, and that's my hot take. Is I think the Carolina Panthers head coaching job is the least attractive head coaching job in the entire NFL right now.
I think I'm going to stand up for Bryce Young here because you guys know my take on him. I think it's kind of really unfair to Bryce Young to say that, though, because you just mentioned Will Levis in his comparison. Will Levis had DeAndre Hopkins, Derrick Henry, Spears, and even the tight end over there is pretty good. I always mess up his last name, so I didn't even try it. But he actually had some weapons. Bryce Young had a 40-year-old Adam Thielen. I'm obviously exaggerating age-wise. And his number 2 option was DJ Chark. And then his run game was Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard with a not-so-great offensive line. And then his head coach got turned over in the middle of the year. What was his? I don't know that any of these rookie quarterbacks, take Richardson, take Stroud, take anyone, put them on the Panthers. Maybe they do marginally better, but I don't think anyone has a successful season with the Panthers this year. And if a coach doesn't go to the Panthers, it's not because Bryce Young doesn't have potential or because they can't build around him. Give him some weapons and see what happens, right? He hasn't had that opportunity yet. It's because of Tepper. Who in their right mind wants to go over there and coach with Tepper, doing whatever he wants to do? That man, I respect his tenacity. I love the stories about him, but he needs to dial back as an owner if they're going to have any success. He doesn't really have any loyalty to the guys he goes with. And to be fair, I mean, I'm going to hop off my Frank Reich bandwagon because obviously he did not do a great job with Carolina, but the flip side is he wanted Stroud, and they went with Young. I mean, it was very well documented that was the case. So Tepper is just doing whatever he wants over there. They just hired a new GM, so we'll see if anything changes and if that GM is going to have a little more authority. But they need to give Bryce Young some weapons, dude. Look at all the young quarterbacks that have had success in the NFL. They started with really good receivers. Joe Burrow is your perfect example. Even Tua, even though might call him a fraud or whatever, he was way better once he got Tyreek and guys around him than prior to that. So I'm gonna leave it there.
Yeah, I agree with Cy. I mean, I'm not the biggest Bryce Young fan, but I think it's, after 1 year and what was a dumpster fire in Carolina, like Cy said, it's too early to write him off. And obviously, I'm not a Will Levis fan either, so I'm not a big fan of either. I don't think either of them are going to have, careers of super noteworthy careers by any means, but we'll see what happens in Carolina. Maybe that's a Bobby Slowick destination, Zach. Try to get him a year early because I know there was some buzz of Houston liking both Stroud and Young. You got to find a coach that definitely still believes in Bryce Young. Obviously, that's going to be a key and a big part of the interview process. So
that is the challenging part, Evan, is how are you going to attract a Ben Johnson to come to Carolina and fix the Bryce Young problem? If you fix it and it is viable, I get your points. I do really do. But if you fix Bryce Young, you're hailed a hero. But do you really think that can happen when you're dealing with a guy who can barely see over the line of scrimmage? He's 5'10". Yes, he's a playmaker, but the speed advances rapidly in the NFL. It's not like college ball, even SEC ball. And if you're a Ben Johnson, you want to have the keys to who you're going to draft. There's so many quarterbacks that are coming into this draft in 2024, and between Caleb Williams and a ton of other guys, a lot of them are 6'3", 230. They can absorb hits in the NFL and get up and kind of run that scheme that Ben Johnson's looking for. So I just think it's going to be harder in Carolina to attract a guy like that because they already have the guy that they've traded for. And it's essentially saying, hey, who's gonna fix the problem? I just think that's gonna deter a lot of coaches away. But on the David Tepper front, there is something I heard that is hilarious. He once called the GM before he fired this GM, and he said, hey, I was looking at film of the New Orleans Saints, and I like the way Taysom Hill ran this play. We should start to run that in practice. And it's like, has somebody told him that he can't run this offense? Like, there needs to be a separation of owners and coaches. And I just thought that was when the wheels of the bus started to fall off in Carolina, was when not only David Tepper was firing people once a year, but he was also calling in and demanding that they run schemes because he saw it on film from other offenses that were running this, whatever they were. So anyways, a fun little aside, but I guess back to the topic here.
I do want to say one last thing. I think Slowick needs another year no matter where he goes, because the reality is I'm not saying he hasn't shown shades of being a good coordinator, but his offense was very simple. It was throw the ball a bunch with CJ Stroud and run the ball a bunch with Singletary. I didn't see it being like super creative or anything like that, and he's super young, so I think he needs a little bit more time. But I actually think this is one of the few cases where in Carolina they need to hire someone who has authority. Like, I'm not saying Bill Belichick would go there, but they need like a Bill Belichick, Pete Carroll type who can literally, like, if the owner or the GM is being ridiculous, they can put their foot down and be like, no, this is not how we conduct business, and this is what we need to do to build a locker room, right? The other problem is they don't have draft picks. So the only way they're getting Bryce Young weapons is by signing free agents. So it's going to be really interesting. It's going to take a little while, but they have to be patient with Young and give him a chance, dude. The poor guy he had nothing to work with. He's like the opposite of Kyle Pitts and Drake London. They've had no quarterback play, so you haven't seen them reach their potential, and he's had no receiver play, so he's going to need a little help with the potential. But anyway, that's my last point there.
All right, last question on the coaching, because I think this is going to produce a lot of shorts, actually. I think this is going to produce a lot of shorts. Where do we think, or who do we think is going to get the head coaching job in Los Angeles? Is it going to be, for the Chargers, I'm mainly talking about Harbaugh or Ben Johnson? Because Ben Johnson is the quarterback whisperer, and he already has his quarterback, and he can just start to run that offensive scheme right now.
Harbaugh. And also, that a little bit on Ben Johnson, not to like get too deep into this, but he's doing this Lions thing with Jared Goff. Like, he's not some like QB centric, like, I mean, if he builds his team the same way, like, kind of offense, like, the Lions are basically just a, well-oiled offensive machine with an elite offensive line, terrific weapons, and good scheming by Ben. And then Jared Goff is just kind of like, game managing the ship. So, like, I don't see him as like the QB whisperer type per se, which actually kind of Harbaugh almost has a little bit of that in him. So, but anyway, I think Harbaugh to LA is a lock. He's already
he's the personality for it.
I
Yeah.
think it's going to be Harbaugh, but he better not come in there trying to run his like San Francisco 49ers of 10 years ago offense with Kaepernick. Like he needs to get a good offensive coordinator because he shouldn't be calling the plays. I understand. I respect that kind of old school mentality of like run the ball first, but you got to get Herbert. Like I just so badly want to see Herbert in a position where he can be that literally MVP caliber player that he's capable of being. Like he has that potential. So I think it'll be Harbaugh, but it's his coordinators are going to make a huge difference, especially coming back from college. But Ben Johnson is a great point because this is a great lead into the next game, which was that was Saturday night, right? Or am I mixing up the schedule?
No, we can go out of order though.
Oh, God,
Yeah,
order.
let's talk
Okay.
about the
Let's
Bucks
talk about
Lions
Ben
game.
Johnson. So let's jump into it. Nice win by the Lions, but the Buccaneers kept it pretty close till the end. Here's my hot take: the Lions won; they should have won. I think Ben Johnson is getting too much credit, and here's why. Lions extremely successful. I don't dispute that. Dan Campbell is a culture builder there, though, and the way that Ben Johnson runs an offense is it's appropriate with what they have, and he does a great job with the Lions. But the flip side is it's not very creative. And if you want to beat his offense, just blitz your cornerback. That's what I learned this weekend because the run game, he has Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. In the past game, he has Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and Jameson Williams and Josh Reynolds. That is a great, 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 great offense, as Evan alluded to, with an amazing offensive line with like Ragnow, who's like one of the best offensive linemen in the NFL, all together. And Goff is like a really good game manager. He's got no Super Bowl with the Rams, right? So I'm starting to question if we're giving Ben Johnson too much credit here, like as this like elite, like amazing offensive coach. I think he's good. I don't know if he's like McVay, Shanahan
I
level.
agree the hype's gotten a little out of hand, but I still think he should be one of the top candidates. But I challenge, like, I don't like. What do you want out of coordinators? You've called both of the kind of top offensive coordinator candidates here as not being creative enough for your taste. But my challenge to you is like, wouldn't you rather just build a good team and like play a pretty straightforward? Like, I find being super creative is overrated. And like when you get into a lot of the route concepts, which are really smart and like, receivers working off of each other. And Ben Johnson is one of the best in the game at scripting plays as well. Like, I mean, it didn't work out this week, but like first touchdown, they almost always score because of the brilliant scripting plays, one off after the other. Like, I find your desire for a creative offense a little overrated, whereas the best teams, even like Kyle Shanahan, like they pretty much just use, the zone blocking scheme, which has been effective for decades under his dad, and shove it down people's throats. Like, I mean, McDaniel is quite a wizard, I will give you. But I feel like most coaches, it's just like they just are smart about playing to their talent, right? And that's really the brilliance of it, if you will.
I wholeheartedly agree with you. I'll counter my point, but I want to give Zach an opportunity to speak his mind before because I'll tell you exactly what I mean by that. But go ahead, Zach.
I appreciate it. So I think it's a really interesting conversation because I think that there's a lot of value in what Evan just said. When Ben Johnson is running a scheme that works, players are running routes off of each other. Amon St. Brown is getting 10 receptions a game, and he's definitely not Tyreek Hill. I'm going to go ahead and compare Ben Johnson to Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel is a fantastic wizard. Plays, I mean, he is an offensive guru. We all understand that, and I think the NFL community understands that and gives him that credit. However, when you look at efficiency, you could argue that Detroit is more efficient than Miami, and it's because they play better against harder defenses. So isn't that more work for an offensive coordinator when Detroit's going into Kansas City and beating Kansas City first week of the season, in one of the hardest places to play in the nation? Miami, they can't beat a good football team, and they're reliant on home to win. So I'm not trying to dock Mike McDaniels necessarily, but what I am saying is that Ben Johnson, when the games matter most, they close the deal, they spread the ball across different receivers. They don't just say, hey, we're going to throw it up to Tyreek, which has happened plenty of times this week in Miami. So I do think that there's a lot of credit to be due with Ben Johnson. The only other point I'll make too, because I do want to hear your response, Sai, is look at David Montgomery. He was a nobody in Chicago, and
That's not true.
Given we knew he had talent, but what is actually happening in Detroit? He has completely separated himself from the pack. where he's even splitting carries and he's having a more efficient year than he ever had in Chicago. So I think Ben Johnson is able to take these guys and make something big from them. And Jared Goff is a perfect example of that. He was LA got rid of him. They wanted nothing to do with him. They were so ready to move forward. And look what he's become. He's become a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. So I think that has a lot of credit to do with Ben Johnson too.
I want to clarify something. You both are completely right. I'm not disputing that Ben Johnson isn't the top target or that he won't be a good head coach. What I'm pointing out is if you compare him to like some of the OCs that have become head coaches over like the last, several years, I don't think what I'm trying to say is I don't think he's like immediately on the level of some of those guys. And obviously he has ample opportunity to prove it next year and in the years to come. I don't dispute that. The point that I'm trying to make about creativity though is you just pointed to Mike McDaniels, which is a good example. But I'll use Nick Sirianni and Shane Steichen as an example, right? If you have the pieces there already, oh my gosh, yeah, the way Ben Johnson runs an offense is great because then it's simple. You run the ball with your great running backs. You use your great offensive line. I don't dispute that isn't available. But when your offense is stalling and you need to give them a different look or you need to have that play ready to get that third down or whatever it is, that's the difference between an offense with some creativity and straightforward. And I know this firsthand because Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen is exactly what I'm talking about. Nick Sirianni was the Colts OC before he went over to the Eagles. Nick Sirianni ran the most straightforward offense you could ever think of. He ran the ball with Jonathan Taylor, play action, pass to down the field. He goes over there. Shane Steichen becomes his OC. Shane calls the offensive plays. The Eagles go to the Super Bowl. They're one of the most dynamic offenses in the league. Shane Steichen leaves. The Eagles lose to the Baker Mayfield Tampa Bay Bucks, and now everyone's calling for Sirianni's head, and they're calling for Jalen Hurts' head, who people were talking about as an MVP candidate a year ago, top 5. So what I'm talking about is when you get a coach to go to a new team, and obviously I'm biased, I get it, I'm a Colts fan, I'm going to amp up Steichen. I totally understand if I'm overdoing it, whatever it is. But we won 9 games with Gardner Minshew as our backup. And I've watched a lot of football this year, especially offense, and I watched Steichen scheme things up for an offense that isn't that good relative to some of these other teams to actually be able to overcome teams that are better than them, especially defensively. Like creative play calling, running certain formations, running the same play twice in the same position in the red zone, but switching the looks and things like that. So what I'm saying is creativity is really beneficial to head coaching when you're first starting off with the new offense and you need pieces, right? Like you're not going to immediately, wherever he goes, he's not going to go over there and immediately have Amon-Ra St. Brown, a wide receiver 1, 2 dynamic running backs, a quarterback that's immediately like a veteran that's had experience. He's not going to have that. So what I'm saying is he might prove me wrong, but I just want to see a little bit more ability to overcome those moments when your offense is just like stalling. And that happened with the Rams. That happened with the Bucks. They won the game, so maybe I'm being overcritical. That might just be my thing. But what I'm saying is
scored 30+ points. But yeah,
I don't dispute that. But I'm just saying the Bucks. Part of the reason the Bucks almost beat them is because they just blitzed them like over and over and over again, and it was working. Like that's my point. Like it feels like that you can beat that a little bit easier because they're clearly the Lions are by far and away the better team. I don't think we can dispute that. I mean that's my point there. Either way, that's my point.
To your blitz point, Jared Goff is one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL under pressure. So are we blaming Ben or are we blaming Goff there?
Combination of both.
Sure, but we know Goff is not good under pressure. So I think that's a lot to do more with Goff. And to Zach's point, I actually think Mike McDaniel's being quite overhyped right now. Like, you don't beat good teams with creativity, right? You have to beat them by smashing them in the face and like dominating the line of scrimmage. And like that's why the good defenses, the really like this year Chiefs, Baltimore, San Francisco to an extent, like they're just so disciplined in how they play. Like they're not going to get beat by like these just like crazy like frilly kind of offenses, which is why Mike McDaniel and Tua they didn't beat a single good team this year. And sure, maybe when you don't have the kind of like the Colts don't have the kind of talent on offense, I guess is your point, then you can still win games by being more creative. But ultimately, I think that can only get you so far.
I'd argue the Ravens this year and the Eagles last year were very creative in terms of how they ran their offense. Because if you just ran a straight look with guys like Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson, you would never win games.
I actually think it's the opposite as to why the Ravens offense is like, well, not that it's so much better this year, but I think what they did this year is they just said, actually, we're not going to do all this as much of this zone read like kind of nonsense. We're just going to drop back Lamar less because we think he's going to become some kind of pocket passer, but because no one can sack him. And finally, by the time they actually get to him, the receivers have had so much time to run around and get open. This is one of the things I got wrong this year, I'll admit. And I think like Baltimore's gotten so much better because they simplified it. They just said, no one can tackle Lamar, but we don't necessarily want him leaving the pocket and like running it as much. We want him using his legs within the pocket, just scrambling around until his kind of like fairly mediocre, kind of average receivers are finally able to get open. And then like it's worked. Like I actually think they got better by simplifying, and they still have zone read and whatnot. But
I don't know if you watch them in the field this weekend. The big plays this weekend, the big third down conversions were often very creative, like fake handoffs, like roll one way kind of plays. So I think there's a lot of creativity when you have dynamic quarterbacks. But again, it really just comes down to which offense Johnson ends up at. I think he'll be good. My whole point of this argument was that I think we're deeming him on the same level as some of these other guys that have gotten hired in the last couple of years, and I don't know if he's quite there because those guys were extremely creative. That's all I'm pointing out. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, though. And maybe he's just doing what he has.
He has way more pedigree than McVay did when he got hired, though. McVay was a tight ends coach.
Yeah, McVay was 30. That was a very different circumstance and a very different situation.
I think Ben Johnson is the closest to Kyle Shanahan out of any single one of the coaches we mentioned so far, outside of Mike McDaniel because he worked directly with him. But the reason I say that is because it's efficient. It's efficiency. It is the most traditional and balanced play action offense in the NFL right now, and it is the only reason why they're sitting there in the final four teams in the NFC Championship, because they were the worst team in the league 2 years ago. So I think there is credit in that, because you mentioned Baltimore and Philly, and that takes a superstar to run that type of offense. Whereas there are really no superstars in Detroit. They all just work together, and it's just a very efficient offense. So I'm curious to see what happens in that, but we might want to move on to another game.
True. We really hammered that one home.
All right, so Ev, I'll turn this over to you. Thoughts on the Packers 49ers game?
Yeah, I wasn't actually able to watch this one. It was a real bummer because it looked like a sick game. So I'll keep it short and sweet as to speed up this process and let the guys that maybe saw it, opine. But my biggest takeaway from this one, after watching some of the film and some of the feedback, from the analysts out there, is my Brock Purdy take is coming back around.
Yes,
I understand he did not look good at all, and now you might have Deebo Samuel out. Once he left the game and he threw that early interception, which really got in his head and really made him really cautious the rest of the game. Pulled it out late, as I understand, on that great last drive. But I don't think they're going to be able to win with him, man. I don't think they're going to be able to win the whole thing with him. So that's really my only take. Tip the cap to the Packers for another good game, but I think I'm back to dying on the they're not going to win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy Hill.
And Si, all I'll say about this is I was wrong about the Packers. You guys are right. They have played incredible football the last 5 weeks of the season, especially these last two games. So tip the cap to them, and really excited to see what Jordan Love brings next year. But Si, I'll give you the floor here.
I think Evan's take is fair, but I don't think I agree with Evan to the extent, though, because I think Evan often, and maybe he's exaggerating, but he'll be like, Brock Purdy's a bottom 10 quarterback in the league, and I think that's ridiculous because if you watch a game, he made his mistakes, and I don't dispute that. And but the flip side of that, though, is he made the plays when it mattered, too, so that's really what the Niners need. Now, Deebo being out is massive. If you remember, the games they lost in the middle of the season, when they had their lull, was because Deebo and Trent Williams were out. So I don't think Deebo gets enough credit for his impact on that offense because they use him very creatively. However, I still think Purdy he did what he needed to do to win. He could have had a better game, but it's not like he lost the game. I want to focus on, we know what the 49ers are capable of. We know how good they are. We'll talk about them in the context of them playing the Lions next week. I want to focus on Jordan Love. Jordan Love, he made some mistakes in the fourth quarter. I don't dispute that. But, oh, my gosh, Jordan, I don't know what is in the juice in Green Bay, but Jordan Love looks like that dude. And I'm not saying he's going to be like the ceiling of a Rodgers or maybe a Brett Favre prior to him, but he is so composed, and it just feels like he makes the right throws over and over and over and over again. And I honestly, like a week ago, somebody had the conversation with me, like, it was in a group message, and they were like, do you think C.J. Stroud or Jordan Love is going to be better when it's all said and done? And most of us answer C.J. Stroud, myself included, because obviously he's a rookie who hasn't gotten to sit for years and learn from one of the best. But I'm starting to really question my take because Jordan Love I mean, that composure was next level. I really think this guy's future is as bright as it can be. And I think the Packers found themselves another guy for another 10, 15 years. I mean, he looked so good against a team that they shouldn't have even been close and on the road against. He made some insane throws. Like he made some Rodgers-esque throws. Doesn't have the arm talent, but oh my gosh, he's amazing. So I just want to give him his flowers, dude. He blew him out of the water. Yeah,
I think Schefter said he's getting his extension this offseason.
he should.
So
I'm going to say, well, talking about blowing in the water, there's a lot of wind gusts blowing in the Buffalo Kansas City game, enough to another wide right spectacle. Unfortunately for the Bills, they drop another divisional playoff game against the infamous Kansas City Chiefs. I was surprised by this one. I really was. I thought that this was going to be Buffalo's year. Josh Allen is due a Super Bowl at some point, you would think. Stephon Diggs is due a Super Bowl at some point. Nope, not again. It's the Mahomes and Travis Kelce story till the end of time. And this is going to go down. Like I'm already looking forward to the Netflix documentary of the Bills just not being able to get past these foes, because these teams hate each other. Buffalo fans were throwing snowballs at Chris Jones, which I don't know if you ever want to do again, because he's not the guy you want to attack. But Patrick Mahomes is getting flooded with snowballs, and I just think overall it was another close game. It was a great game, back and forth. Buffalo was definitely in the mix, but they lost it when it mattered, and just wanted to get y'all's take on it.
Go ahead, Evan.
is it me?
Yeah.
I have a lot to say on this one, so I don't even know where to start. So I'll start with the mistakes I made in analyzing this game before it started. One, not recognizing the mountain of injuries that Buffalo had defensively. That was a huge problem in this game. The Mahomes offense, they moved it with ease. They ran it down their throats. That proved to be a big factor. And two, because the other game I didn't watch last week was the Kansas City game. And their offense looks completely different than it did in the regular season. Like completely like back to normal, like running efficiently like a well-oiled machine. Pacheco's obviously a beast. So that perhaps having not watched that game, not realizing like, that this is not the issues that we necessarily saw as much in the regular season. I still don't think they have the ceiling they once did because of their lack of talent on the outside. And I still don't think Kelsey's back to 100% like he used to be, but the offense is definitely back. So I think those are the two mistakes I made in my confident pick of the Bills in this game. Maybe I'll stop there and then I'll circle back for another batch of criticisms of folks within the Buffalo organization because again I have a lot of opinions on this.
This is time, Evan, for you and I to buckle down and get in the fetal position because Sai's about to tee off on us right now.
You guys are so lucky I wasn't on that podcast last week because I would have said this earlier and I would have said this very clearly. The Chiefs don't hate the Bills because why would you hate a team that can never beat you when it matters? The Bills hate the Chiefs because they can't beat them in Kansas City, and now they proved they can't beat them in Buffalo. And this is exactly what I would have told you last week. And I heard you two, and I'm blending your takes together a little bit because you both have said different things about the Chiefs. I've heard, and I can pull up the read receipts, I've heard the Chiefs suck, Travis Kelce is washed, this nonsense, that nonsense. But the reality is you're betting against a GOAT, and you guys keep putting your money on against the GOAT, and I'm going to keep putting my money on him because all he does is show up when the moment matters, and all the other team does is manage to lose when they have to play the big game. I want to give Josh Allen his due. He did not play a bad game. The reality is Josh had some Superman moments, but at the same time, you're at home. I understand you have injuries, but it's not like the Chiefs are, coming in with this perfect, healthy, amazing roster. Yeah. Like they should have won that game at home, and they had every position to do so. You go for it on a field goal, you go for it on a punt on your side of the field, and you don't even throw the ball in a crucial situation. Then you get super lucky that the Chiefs, for whatever reason, can't just run the ball down your throat with Isaiah Pacheco and decide to do another handoff to Mecole Hardman, who, by the way, fumbled earlier in the game, and they give it to him again. And what does he do? He fumbles in the end zone, and you still can't win the game? Dude, I'm done. And I heard the same – I want to cuss, but I'm not going to. I heard the same nonsense a year ago and the year before. Oh, it's the Bills year. Oh, it's the Bills year. Oh, the Bills are going to beat them in the playoffs. Oh, they were this close. If it wasn't for a coin flip, the Bills would have won this game. Blah, blah, blah. BS, 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 BS. I'm done with it. I don't want to hear any more BS. Patrick Mahomes is sunning the Chiefs or sunning the Bills every time he gets an opportunity to do so. and he is their daddy. They can't do anything about it. And I'm sorry, Mahomes is the GOAT, and Josh Allen, you are a tier below him at this point. Sorry, man. I love you, Allen. I want you to win. But stop betting against the Chiefs against this matchup because it is ridiculous. I don't even care if Josh Allen's out there with us, or sorry, if Mahomes is out there with us. Bills cannot beat him when it matters. They can beat him in the regular season. They can talk their smack, but you can't beat him. Done, period. I'm tired of this nonsense. The Chiefs are good, and I don't want to hear any more nonsense about it.
Zach, you want to go or should I?
I'm at a loss for words.
So, but my problem with all that, Sign, like you keep saying him, like him as in Mahomes. The quarterback play had nothing to do with the outcome of this game. The quarterback play had nothing to do with the outcome of the last time they met in the playoffs. Josh Allen has played some of his best games. This wasn't one of his elite games, but he was like terrific in this game. Like in the game before, that last Chiefs game where they scored in 13 seconds, Josh Allen did everything he could possibly do to win that football game. And he, again, has to put the entire team on his back, whereas Mahomes, obviously Mahomes was brilliant as well. Like, he was incredibly efficient. But, like, between the run game and the way better defense the Chiefs has, you can't be saying him. Yes, the Buffalo Bills are getting sunned by the Kansas City Chiefs and all that nonsense. And I actually would argue it's not even the players, it's the coaches. Like, Sean McDermott needs to be fired. He is an absolute disaster. The fake punt was a true and utter like mockery of a decision. And if you go back 2 years ago to that game they lost, he also just completely botched the time management that even gave the Chiefs the ball in the first place and allowed them to go down 13 seconds and win that football game. Sean McDermott needs to be fired, number one. Stephon Diggs needs to be traded. That dude was an absolute no-show this year. And in this game, like I get L'Jarius Sneed, one of the best corners in the league. Stephon Diggs was an absolute no-show. Josh had no open receivers to throw the ball to. I actually made this prediction earlier in the season that things could get ugly for the Bills if it doesn't go well, and that Diggs could ask out, and I think that's exactly what's going to happen. So Diggs and McDermott for me, like, really need to be put on the chopping block, and like everyone that keeps criticizing Josh, like, I don't know what else you want him to do, honestly. Like Tyler Bass, like
maybe make a play in the fourth quarter.
He's facing he got them in position to send the game to overtime, and then the kicker missed. Like against one of the best defenses in the league. Like
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I don't know what people expect Josh to do more than what he's done.
No, listen, I don't dispute that. I think Josh Allen is the second best quarterback in the league, or right there with Lamar Jackson in the context of the last couple of years. My point, though, is whether you want to focus on Josh or not, how many times are we going to make excuses for the Bills, dude? They do this every single year. This is the same thing I said last year.
I'm not making excuses for the Bills. I'm making excuses for Josh because every time it's not his fault.
But you're using that as a context for being like, oh, the Chiefs are getting too much credit. But the reality is, you want to talk about.
I don't think that's true.
Dude, Evan, Evan, you literally just said, oh, Josh Allen, Mahomes does it or Mahomes has more than Josh Allen or something like that. Last year, Patrick Mahomes went to the Super Bowl and won the Super Bowl, had an incredible game against the defense that has essentially dominated everyone else they played prior to that. Who, outside of Travis Kelce, who was his number one wide receiver option? Give it to me, I will agree with you.
I'm talking about defenses. Buffalo's defense with all these injuries is probably a bottom 10 in the league. Chiefs have like a top 5, top 3 defense in the league. Dude. Neither of them now, because of Stephon Diggs being a complete no-show, had receiver weapons really at all. They both have good tight ends.
Stephon Diggs is still playing, dude. Like,
and the Chiefs run. Dude, he's been an absolute zero.
If you can't get him involved, you can't get him involved. That comes down to your offense. Like
coaching. That's my point. This is that's what I'm saying. Like, Andy Reid is also one of the best coaches in the game. I think this ultimately comes down to coaches primarily as the number one factor. Like,
yeah, but at what point are you going to give the Chiefs their credit for what they've done? Because so far, I heard you guys roast them nonstop. They won 2 games on the road this playoffs, and you guys told me that you guys were like, "Oh, it's a certainty. The Bills are the lock." You literally said that to me, like just a week or two ago, and now you're not giving the Chiefs flowers because you're spending more time talking about the Bills not having good coaching. But the reality is, Patrick Mahomes went on the road in Buffalo and beat them. And you're saying the quarterback play didn't matter. Of course it matters. He didn't make mistakes on the road. He put them in position. Travis Kelce had 2 touchdowns after you guys told me he was washed. And yeah, Pacheco's great, but they know how to use him in the offense. So all I'm saying is I don't dispute what you're saying, Evan. I'm just saying give the Chiefs a little bit of credit because they clearly have proven that on a year that you guys said they suck, that they're better than you've given them credit for. That's all I'm asking. That's all I'm saying there.
I don't think we're not, because the whole narrative in the media right now is about the Bills, so we're just kind of reacting to that. And I've said that Andy Reid is the best coach in the league. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. They have an elite defense and elite running game. I don't know what you think I'm not giving the Bills or the Chiefs credit for.
You told me they sucked right before the playoffs.
I mean, if you want to pull the clip, go for it.
I'm happy to do so. I have the read receipts. I'll happily show you where you and Zach both told me the Chiefs suck. Travis Kelce is washed. These are all things I've seen from you two.
They did play terrible in the regular season. I think that's a fact. You can't really argue that.
But you labeled them as they suck, and they're not going to have a chance. And that's all I'm saying there. And they showed it, and now they're not getting their flowers. And that's why I'm standing up for them, because it's like – we talked about, the Bills shit the bed, and they did. I don't dispute that. But the reality is that doesn't mean the Chiefs didn't play great, and they haven't shown up even with their lack of weapons. And their defense is good, but I also don't know why people are acting like their defense is like elite. Like they're not the Ravens. They're not the Ravens.
It's tough.
They're not the 49ers.
They're better than the 49ers.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Yeah, dude. It's not.
Oh, my gosh. Dude.
No.
I'll pull up the data.
I mean,
the Niners' corners are not good.
It's not just about numbers. It's not just about numbers and data. It's about watching the game and seeing who the defenses have, dude. I mean, you're talking about obviously Chris Jones is amazing, but you cannot tell me that if you're watching
Jerry Sneed and Trent McDuffie, dude, those guys are absolute studs.
I don't dispute
the Niners do not have a secondary. The Niners' secondary is very exploitable.
Ward is one of the best. Ward is one of the best players in the NFL. Are you kidding me right now?
Sneed is better, dude.
You want to forget about Fred Warner, Nick Bosa? Like, are you kidding me? Javon Kinlaw, their defensive line is one of the best in the NFL. You want to name names? I can name 100 more.
I mean, the Chiefs were second in points allowed this year. I don't know what else you want. Like the Niners were third. I'm not saying the Niners don't have a good defense.
Yeah, schedule is one, a part of that, and two, game script is a part of that. Stats doesn't just speak for an entire team's performance. Because if that was the case, we'd be talking about Brock Purdy as a top 2 quarterback in the NFL based on QBR and numbers. But you come here every week and tell me Brock Purdy isn't even top 15. So let's not go purely based on numbers, because then you can make a lot of arguments.
The Chiefs' defense is definitively elite. You can't even argue that.
I'm not saying they're not great. I'm just saying that they're not as good as people are making them out to be.
I think what Sai's looking for is for us to acknowledge that he was right about the Chiefs, and I will give him that acknowledgement because they've turned into a postseason juggernaut. But where I see Evan's point is that Josh Allen is dealt dummy receivers. Stephon Diggs did not show up this whole playoffs. That's a fact. Sean McDermott is going to get fired and should, because nothing has changed in this Bills organization for 4 or 5 years. This is a wretched defense plagued by injuries. Tre'Davious White is a shell of himself. Their safeties are aging rapidly. He was out. Their safeties are aging rapidly. So Josh Allen really did have to put the team on his back. Like that pass to Shakir in the corner of the end zone,
amazing,
was unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, he is just as good. I mean, he can hang in there. He's the only reason that game was close. That's Evan's point.
Yeah, he didn't make a play in the fourth quarter, but yet he threw a ball 65 yards.
I don't dispute
on
that.
An absolute dot, and it went right through Stephon Diggs' hands. Like Trent Sherfield, big play, dropped. You mentioned Shakir. I'm just trying to defend Josh.
I don't want you to. Yeah, I don't
Chiefs
want
have
this
turned into the Brady Patriots, in that they turn it on in the playoffs. I'll give you that, and they become that elite team every playoffs. So yeah, I'm not disputing that, but
I don't want the narrative here to be that I'm trying to act like Josh Allen is an elite. Obviously he is, and he's incredible. And I'm not disputing he didn't have to be Superman. But I am tired of people acting like, Allen doesn't have weapons and he has to be Superman, but Mahomes is rolling in him. Like we just talked, you guys spent half the year telling me Travis Kelce's washed, and obviously Pacheco's good, but James Cook has been great this season. Where was he this game? Stephon Diggs, okay, I don't dispute that he didn't play well, but he's on the field. Like if you can't figure out a way to use him, that's partly on the team. That's not Josh Allen's fault. I'm not saying that it's 100% Josh Allen's fault. I'm not saying that. My point though is At what point are we going to stop making excuses for the Bills overall? It's not just Allen. I get Allen had a good game, but overall, has Allen been this amazing playoff quarterback? I don't think he has been. He didn't win. He didn't win this, dude. Last year, they literally lost to the Bengals because Allen put up one of the biggest duds I've seen in a home game. They've had back-to-back home games where they should have won, and they didn't win either of them. So I just don't I feel like we're making excuses for the Bills, but not giving the Chiefs credit. And although the Chiefs have a good defense, I just want you to acknowledge that their offense is better than we've given them credit for. Rashee Rice has been used great in this playoffs. Game 1, he was the difference maker. They find a way to win even when they don't have pieces, on offense, relative to other teams. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying they deserve more credit than they've gotten from people in general over then. It's not even about me being right. It's about Patrick Mahomes being a GOAT. That's the point here. The best
find a way to
win.
Brady to be
well,
clear.
He's on that trajectory. Is my point. At least
but he's got about a dozen years to go. So
no, he does not have a dozen years to go. He has 3 Super Bowls. He's been to He's won 3 Super Bowls. He's been to 4. He's 2-time Super Bowl MVP and a 2-time regular season MVP. I don't think he needs a dozen years to pass Brady, dude. He's well ahead of him in terms of his early season career. I don't know when Mahomes is gonna give flowers. Regardless, dude, he doesn't need a dozen years. He's on his way.
Well, you're associating people not giving Mahomes his flowers for people not saying he's the greatest NFL quarterback of all time.
That's not what I'm saying.
In his career. That's exactly what you're saying.
Nope. What I'm saying is,
I don't know what you want from people.
What I'm saying is, you both told me the Chiefs suck, especially on offense. They have a good defense, but their offense sucks.
They did.
And no, but they don't, though. Just because you said they suck 4 weeks ago doesn't mean you're right, because they just proved they don't suck. That's my point, Evan. That you can say it 1 week, but if they prove you wrong the next week, then you're wrong. That's the point of the conversation here. I don't know how many times
we're reacting to what's happened, and the Chiefs weren't even a top 15 offense in the NFL this year, and
they won when it matters.
Yeah, no, I'll give them credit for that.
That's my point.
But when we said they suck, we said, and they did. That's a fact. And then
they suck. Period.
Yes,
and
suck.
There's a difference between those two things.
For an entire 18-week season, they were not even top half of the league in offense.
And my point was that they'll show up when the moment counts, and they did. And that's all I'm saying. Yeah. And clearly they did. And it's as simple as that.
Hey, I gave you your props.
Thank you, Zach. I appreciate it. But it's okay. Because Evan, to be fair, Evan has some very valid points. And the reason I'm so heated is it's not specifically you two. I feel like I've consistently had to point to the fact that these guys have showed up every time they need to show up, no matter who they've played. And it's just a conversation I've continuously had with a lot of different people. So I came in heated to start off with, because I've been on this train for a long time. You guys already know this. I never pick against them. So maybe it's my insane bias in my mind there. Yeah.
I literally opened the segment 20 minutes ago explaining how I got this pick wrong. One of which was
I know. I'm not disputing. I'm just making sure that the Chiefs get their flowers too.
Well, let's stay on the subject. We're not deviating from it, because I want to see, with the conference championship game, the Chiefs are going to Baltimore. It's going to be frigid cold, and the Baltimore Ravens are favored 3.5, 3 p.m. game on CBS, Sunday, January 28th. I'll start this one off.
You two start, yeah.
I think the Ravens are going to come in and kick the Chiefs in the teeth. I really do. So I will apologize to you, Cy, because we were wrong about the Chiefs. But this is a new game and this is a new week. I have the Ravens winning comfortably. The Baltimore buzzsaw, as Evan puts it, is coming from Mahomes and company. And I really think that they are going to expose the Chiefs this year. For although they're a fantastic playoff team, and you're right, there is a lot of Brady-esque and Patriots-ness in this new team, right? As they kind of carry the torch forward. I get that. But the Ravens are going to extinguish that flame faster than you can see the first snap of this football. I have this game on the over, and I think Baltimore wins by north of a touchdown. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think there's a couple matchup elements to this that could create problems for Baltimore. One is that the best way to beat their defense is ideally through the ground and not through the air. And obviously the Chiefs has been able to run the ball, at an impressive clip of efficiency over the last 2 games. So if they can, continue to run the ball well and control the clock, that'll create some problems. And then, Spagnuolo from a coaching standpoint, one of the best DCs in the game, he's going to bring pressure on Lamar. So, which is going to force him to make quick decisions. And as much as I love what Lamar's done this year, he's not a guy you can just stick in the pocket and he's going to make an instantaneously perfect decision and hit a perfect throw. Like I said, he needs to scramble around, give his receivers who are, average to slightly above average, but like give them time to get open, which again, when you have Snead, you have McDuffie on the back end, that's not so easy. I think the Chiefs defense can create a lot of problems. Given Spagnuolo, bringing the pressure, Chris Jones up the middle, and then the elite corners they have covering on the back end. But Baltimore, I actually think Baltimore isn't getting enough credit this year. I know you're angry about the Chiefs not getting enough credit. I don't think people realize how on another level Baltimore's been this year. Everyone thought they would go to San Francisco and get killed, and instead they beat them by 30. Obviously the Texans aren't on the same level as some of these teams. They beat them by 30. So I have Baltimore winning. I'm not going to say north of a touchdown, but I'll say maybe around a touchdown. So I'll take the -3.5.
Yeah, this I completely respect from this take wholeheartedly, because at the end of the day, I was a Baltimore truther before the season started. I was standing up for Lamar Jackson, and I said the Baltimore Ravens were going to make the playoffs and that they'd be one of the best teams in the AFC. And I've stood by that take because I legitimately believe in John Harbaugh and I believe in Lamar Jackson. So I have no problem with you guys picking this. Their defense is elite. They can run the ball well with Gus Edwards and company. And, obviously guys like Zay Flowers and stuff and their receivers, they're good enough to make the plays. Flip side is, although I have absolutely no problem with you guys taking Baltimore, I'm picking Mahomes and the Chiefs only because I believe in what I know, right? And maybe this is the year Lamar gets over the hump and he beats the Chiefs, and then next year I reassess when I pick. But the reality is I still think the Chiefs have what it takes to give them a game, and if you keep it close, and especially if the Chiefs can take a lead early, that's how I think they beat Baltimore. I think if you get the lead early, more often than not, that doesn't happen very often against Baltimore. I think if you get the lead early, you put the pressure on Baltimore and Lamar, and then you have to make Lamar throw the football. And I think if Baltimore is going to win this game, Lamar needs to have a good game through the air because the Chiefs are too smart. And like Evan said, their defense is too good, and Spagnuolo is too good to just be able to run the ball for 100 yards and win a game that way. So I think really it's going to come down to if Baltimore can get the early lead, it's going to be much more difficult for the Chiefs, but I think they're more likely to come back with Mahomes than the flip side. If the Chiefs get a 2-possession lead, it's going to be way harder for Baltimore because then you're going to force them to throw the ball. I don't know what Mark Andrews' situation is. I think he thought about playing last game, but I feel like even if he comes back, he's not going to be amazing, and that secondary is a nightmare matchup for those young receivers in the context of what's available, and I think Chris Jones will get home at least once or twice. So I'm taking the Chiefs. And Kelsey looked great last game. And I think Rashee Rice can be a good difference maker. They need one more guy, so I think he can step up. So I think it'll be a close game, obviously, but I think the Chiefs will cover. And money line, actually, Chiefs money line.
I will give you credit where credit's due, Si. If I feel very confident about the Baltimore Ravens winning and covering. I really do think they're going to play a fantastic game, and that team is the best coached in football this year, and it is a scary place to play. Playoff football in M&T Bank Stadium. Make no mistake about it. But what I will give you is that the Baltimore Ravens defensive scheme is unstoppable against sedentary quarterbacks, pocket passers, guys who try to get the ball out quick, because guys like Marlon Humphrey can just jam their wide receiver right off the line of scrimmage. What Baltimore could struggle with is a guy who's not sedentary, a guy like Mahomes who's very fluid in the pocket, steps in, is not afraid to scramble, and finds openings down the field because he keeps his head up while he's doing all of that. That could be a very fearful going for Baltimore if Kansas City does go up early. So I'll give you that side. That's an interesting point. I'm going to remain with my pick, but Evan, any thoughts on that?
One thing on that is Chiefs will need touchdowns, not field goals in the red zone. One of their issues this year and hasn't 100% been fixed, although it did look better this week, is specifically red zone defense or offense. And they'll need to be converting for 7, not 3 in this game for sure. So
100%. They need Travis Kelce to do what he did last week and just run the ball with Pacheco when he gets to the 1-yard line. Don't get too. I was that is actually where you two were right about just running a more straightforward offense in certain situations. That is one of those moments where these coaches that you guys are talking about are way smarter because it's like don't trick yourself out of it. Just run, especially when a guy gives you an 18-yard run the play before. Just give him the ball one more time. Give him the ball 4 more times. He'll get in the end zone one of those, right? That's a little, reductive to a great player. So I'm with you guys. You need to not outcoach yourself. That's going to be huge. Harbaugh never outcoaches himself, but Andy Reid doesn't outcoach himself either. This will be a coaching clinic. It'll be really fun to see, especially with the DCs on both sides. It'll be really fun to see how they approach each other's offenses. Baltimore should win this game. They obviously have the far superior talent, and they're at home. I'm picking a team that I just trust in the playoffs. That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah, Lamar against the Spags blitz package does make me a tick nervous with those corners on the outside. And Lamar always in general makes me a little nervous, which I think is at this point clearly unfair. But a big crucial interception off a Spags blitz to Snead or McDuffie.
Yeah,
I'm worried that could be in play.
This could be his breakout, break through that threshold kind of game too. So
I hope so.
I am so excited for this game. This might be the most excited I've been for a conference game in ages. This is more exciting to me than Chiefs Bills and everything like that because it's just such a unique situation. Mahomes in Baltimore, we haven't seen a situation where he's been I guess not as big of an underdog as you two thought it would be. I was laughing the other day when you guys were freaking out when you saw the line was -3, -3.5. I was like, I get your guys' point though, because even I was surprised. I thought it'd be a little bit higher, but then I thought about it more and I was like, I'm not going to, when it comes to the playoffs, you have to look at the last couple of weeks, and Baltimore's looked awesome, but the Chiefs have held their own against good teams. So it'll be fun. I'm excited about this one.
All right, fellas, and in the 6 p.m. game, or 6:30 p.m., I should say, we've got the Detroit Lions playing at the San Francisco 49ers. For all those who are listening for me, because I think that the Detroit Lions are going to come very ready under Dan Campbell. Give me the 49ers win a close one, but the Lions cover this spread, and it's a close game through the entirety in Levi Stadium in San Francisco. So that's my pick. I've got the 49ers winning maybe by 3. Walk-off field goal, and I have the Lions covering -7. So, Ev, I'll kick it over to you.
That's my lean as well, especially if Debo's out. Now, I will say, my one problem with the 49ers is that no team should be so impacted by singular injuries, with the exception of quarterbacks. I really just think San Francisco is so propped up by having, one of the best left tackles in NFL history, one of the best running backs in NFL history. And then, just between Kittle, Juszczyk, Debo, Ayuk, just great skill position and a great defense. So no team is that propped up by that. Most teams are able to recover from, one injury. Obviously, if they mount up, then, that's a different story. Jared Goff on the road just really struggles. Yeah. Been harping on that one all year, so I do think the Lions will cover it given the Debo injury. Brock Purdy not having played that well the last few weeks. I guess because you can exploit their corners. So is Ayuk going to be able to really dominate his matchup on the outside? I think he's going to be a key. And obviously, Goff playing.
Here's my argument, though. Jared Goff is not horrible on the road. I don't know where you guys are getting this narrative this year, because he's actually done just fine on the road. And if you were to look at him on the road in cold games, he's 1-1. He beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs are still alive this year. Now, given it was the first game of the season, everyone's trying to, iron out their processes and whatnot and get used to football again. But they did lose very badly to the Chicago Bears, but this is right around the same time that the Chicago Bears were picking up steam and they won 3 or 4 games in a row. So I don't really I'm not going to allow you guys to get away with the Jared Goff is bad on the road. I don't think that's just going to happen this year because the stats say otherwise.
I don't think the stats say otherwise. I think he makes a ton of mistakes on the road. He has more turnovers on the road, and he's less consistent on the road. And I think throughout his career, you've seen it. Go ahead, Evan. Exactly. course, yeah. Tip the cap though, Zach. Looks like Goff has been better on the road this year than I thought. Yeah. He used to be absolutely terrible. Although I guess he's had like two brutal losses on the road this year, which is probably why that narrative still holds true. But I mean, there's a fair point to quarterbacks traditionally not being as good on the road as they are at home. It just seems like I've noticed the discrepancy far more in the games that Goff has actually lost when it comes to actually watching him play. Seems like he
I
misses
think
more.
I think an important note though in this game is if I'm like a part of the San Francisco 49er faculty, please keep Brock Purdy away from Garner Johnson. If Garner Johnson gets in Brock Purdy's head, this game is completely donezo right from the start. All right, Brock Purdy, Evan is not lying. When they are winning by a substantial margin, he's the best quarterback in the NFL. He enjoys all of those weapons in San Francisco, whether it's Debo or McCaffrey or Ayuk or Kittle, whoever it is. But Garner Johnson has this innate ability to get under quarterback skin. He did it with Baker Mayfield. I'm not sure if you guys saw. He was the one that intercepted the pass, then had a couple words about the film study comments that Baker Mayfield made. So if I'm a San Francisco 49er faculty member, my one job is to keep Brock Purdy far away from that man because he is going to get in his head, and that things could get very ugly very quickly if they're not smart about it. They need to keep Brock Purdy in an isolated room until this game clicks start. So that's my one little aside before this bout gets underway.
Yo, for a guy that is not elite, that man talks more smack than any secondary player ever should. First of all, that interception where he got off Baker and he tossed it to him was Mike Evans' fault for knocking the ball into Gardner Johnson's hand, and he was roasting Baker. Look, I am not a Baker truther by any stretch of imagination. You guys know that. This man won a playoff game this year and made it to the second round. I don't know what Gardner Johnson's on. And if you're letting Gardner Johnson get in your head, I don't know what's wrong with you because this man is not Jalen Ramsey. Like nothing about this guy should be scary. Like as a matter of fact, he's probably very exploitable. So I really hope Brock Purdy throws like a 40-yard touchdown over his dome and they flex on him because you don't mess with that 49ers team, dude. You don't mess with Trent Williams and Debo and guys like that. They'll eat you for dinner. It's a bummer Debo's not out there because I guarantee you it would have been his personal mission to destroy Gardner Johnson, like just absolutely destroy him. And I'm sad we're not going to see that, but it is what it is. True. True. Yeah, dude, good for him. Yeah. Okay. All right. In Brock's defense, he's not a cocky dude. Brock is just goes out there, does his job. He's like a humble guy. He doesn't talk smack. When he makes mistakes, he owns it. Evan, give it. Don't hurt the guy. He's not like a. He's not like
Evan's looking
cocky.
for violence on this podcast.
This poor guy. He just like, just living his life out in SF, just doing his job. Doing what he got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. Oh, quick plug. Quick plug. 100%. I just want to throw out the WWE Royal Rumble is a Saturday night. So for any viewers that
Oh.
are WWE fans, I don't have any other WWE fans in my life. So if anyone wants to talk a little Royal Rumble, shoot me a little text. WrestleMania season's around the corner. It's about to be hype. I'm really plugged in nowadays with WWE. So just want to throw that out there for any of our listeners. Maybe I'll bring you a little content down the road. So it is what it
The
is.
Royal Rumble. Very interesting, Si. I did
30
not know you
men,
were a
30
huge
men in the
fan.
ring. Only one winner goes to WrestleMania to face the WWE champion or the World Heavyweight champion. It's an epic extravaganza. I'll send you some highlights. It's epic.
Please do.
Yes, sir. You broke the cold streak, man.
I broke the curse.
I
I
love
broke
it.
the curse. Which is funny because Sean Strickland probably won that fight. I looked at it again, and the only reason Drickus won that fight was because of the control time, which was a measly 2 minutes on the ground.
Dude, Zach, you can't get a clean win in the UFC, man. I was dying when I sent you guys that text where Zach was like, Kyrie's washed. And then he has a historic, like, 5-game stretch where he averages over 35 a game immediately the day after Zach says it. You have this knack for it, man. It's amazing.
Did you like my response to that? So I said, "Oh, I'm just out here reviving people's careers."
You were next level, Zach. Anyway, that was an amazing episode. Nice, passionate debate, guys. 100 subscribers. That's how we should do it. Can't wait for conference championship in a few weeks. Super Bowl in New York City together. So we're just a few weeks away. Zach, get back to hanging out with your lady. Evan, always a pleasure, dude. Let's keep it hot for the rest of the season, guys. Good luck to y'all.
Sounds good, fellas. And that was Mondays Down South.
Mondays down south.